Okay, good evening, everyone. It is really, indeed, an honor for me to share with you tonight. And what I want to share is actually my journey from music to corporate to iCovest, because I can see as I look back at it now, is that it all has been strategic. So I'll go ahead and kick it off. Just with music. Um, when started with music, I was in the sixth grade. I started off in clarinet, loved the clarinet. In the ninth grade, I switched over to the saxophone, and completed high school in Frankfurt, Germany. And so all the way through elementary school and high school, I was always first chair. Music came to me very easily. When I was in the 10th grade, I joined the top band in Germany, and we toured all over Germany. That was a very fun experience. By the time I was in the 11th grade, I was already proficient in the saxophone, all of them, bass clarinet, drums, flute, bass guitar, and also guitar once in 11th grade. Now, at 12th grade, I had a decision to make. I wanted to go to Berklee School of Music, but I was also accepted to go to West Point Military Academy. So that was a very, very tough decision, and music won out. So my dad retired in El Paso, which is where we landed in El Paso. And so yeah, I hooked up with this guy, Jake Jacobs, bass player, incredible bass player. And the two of us together was just the synergy between the two of us was phenomenal. Just an example, we started a band in 1977. This was in El Paso. There was a really big radio push for Battle of the Bands. A lot of bands applied for it. We auditioned for it, and so we were one of 7 bands who was going to be a part of this activity. So we were band number 3 on the evening. We got band number 4. We got up, did our show. After the show, the main judge came to us and handed us an envelope. And we said, "What is this envelope?" And they said, "Well, this is first place." And we said, "Well, there's 3 other bands behind us." And the judge said, "I've talked with all the other judges, and we all agree there is nobody can come close to what you guys did. So at the end of the event, we're going to announce you guys as winners. Just act surprised." So that was the kind of group that we had put together. So we had dominated all of El Paso, and by 1980, we decided, we need to move to Houston because Houston was more progressive city. So we moved to Houston. The hottest act in Houston was Kirk Whalum. He was on his way to international stardom, and he owned the city. So Kirk Whalum was performing at this club. And so me, Jake, and our band, we went to see Kirk Whalum. So I was checking out Kirk on sax. Jake was checking out the bass player, drummers checking the drummer, keyboard, that kind of stuff. So we were checking each other out. And basically, long story short, we got spanked. We got schooled. These guys, the horsepower, the musical skill, power that they had, they just it was just amazing. So after the concert, the thing about this concert is we were going to play at the same event 2 weeks later. So after the concert, we kind of got together and some of the guys said, "Listen, do we want to come back here or do we want to just cancel because we can't touch Kirk Whalum?" And Jake and I said, "No, we're going to do what we do." So we came back 2 weeks later. We did our 3 sets. After our 3 sets, people came up to us. Some came to me, some came to Jake, some came to the different people, and they all said the same thing. It was about 15 to 20 people. They all said the same thing, different words. And what they said was, they say, "Hey, Kirk Whalum was here a couple weeks ago." And we said, "Yeah, we know, we were here." And they said, "Man, you guys were much better than Kirk Whalum's band." It just kind of blew our minds just all to pieces. But that's just an example of kind of what Jake and I put together in the kind of band that we had. So I was not about at all to go toe to toe with Kirk Whalum, but as a team with the synergy that we had, we were able to be the front runner. So in 81, I gave my life to Christ at Lakewood Church. And shortly after that, I became the orchestra director. I was responsible for writing, arranging all of the music. A lot of celebrities came through Lakewood Church, and so I did a lot of high-profile arrangements, custom arrangements for that as well. Lakewood had the largest international outreach of any church in the world. We had over 1,000 affiliates. And I also hosted symposiums where churches flew into Houston, and I taught them how to do arrangements, how to set up their music books, how to do all things music. So I did that while there. So also I felt like the Lord put me in a different trajectory. So I left the band And as you can imagine, that was a very difficult thing for me and the band. But I felt like the Lord was taking me in a different direction. I left the band. We had a pending thing going with Columbia Records, walked away from that too. And so got married to my lovely wife, Anna, and in 82. And shortly after marriage, I realized, you know what, I'm going to have to really get a real job here if this is going to work out. Well, actually, Anna kind of told me that. So, so I ended up with 1984 getting a job with MCI Telecom. I started at the bottom of the totem pole with commercial telemarketing. And then after 4 years, I got promoted to management, and I just kept getting promoted every single year. And at all of the regional events, the VPs would always tell me, "Hey, Ollie, bring your sax." So I did that. 96, moved to Atlanta. And so my office was located in the King and Queen building. I had an entire floor in the Queen building, and I had 2 floors in the King building. I was responsible for $600 million in revenue. I had the entire United States for my business segment. And I found myself as an African-American male with no college degree and no formal business training, actually running a $600 million, a business unit responsible for $600 million. In all of the annual events, all of the presidents and VPs, hey, be sure to bring your saxophone. 1997, LDDS, there was a billing dispute with LDDS. This is Bernie Ebbers. And Bernie Ebbers owed us $50 million. My senior VP came down and said, Bernie owes us $50 million. If we don't have it wired in our account today by 5 p.m., shut him down. So it was my department who was supporting his network. So I went to my people and told them, hey, be in standby. We may be bringing Bernie Ebbers down. And so at 4:40, senior VP comes back down to my office. We have our $50 million. Do not take them down. I went to my team. Hey guys, there's a stay of execution. We are not going to take down Bernie Ebbers. 1998, there was a merger. It was a merger with WorldCom, and I'll tell you guys straight up, this was a vengeance play. Bernie Ebbers was a genius in terms of how he would make these stock swap deals in acquiring regional long distance carriers. And so he put something together, and this was the little fish buying big fish. So that transition happened in '98, and the objective of the WorldCom management team was to get rid of the MCI management team. Again, this was a vengeance play. So I go to WorldCom in Tulsa to meet my new VP. And one of the first things VP she says is, I want to move dedicated order provisioning to Tulsa. And I said, well, I said, Nancy, I said, the dedicated order provisioning is the most complex of all of our provisionings within the MCI systems. And when I said that, I'm just making a statement. When I said that, my counterparts that were sitting next to me, they literally began to distance themselves away from me. They began to physically shift and move. And I did not understand what that was all about. And she said, excuse me? I said, well, no, it's the most complex of the provision that we do. It takes 9 to 12 months to become proficient in it. And she said, well, that's what I want to happen. Give me a transition plan. I said, okay, I can have a transition plan on your desk in 72 hours. I said, but now in all fairness to you, I just need to explain to you what is likely to happen. And I'm telling you, my counterparts looked at me like, pal, you are toast. You are done. And I said, what's likely to happen is this: you're going to get some phone calls, and they're going to escalate because of delayed installations. That's going to be followed by credit requests, and that is going to be followed by litigation. I said, these circuits that we are doing are high capacity circuits, and they're very, very sensitive. And she just yelled, do as I say. Now, what I did not know is just for me just making a comment about the complexity of the circuits, that is grounds for termination at WorldCom in that culture. Because in that culture, when a VP asks you to jump, if you say how high, you are terminated. With these guys, when they say jump, you just start jumping as high as you can. So I did not get fired, and I found out later the reason I did not get fired was I was on the endangered species list. And so the way that worked is when the merger happened, they said that they needed to identify all of the executives in all of the segments that were critical to the success of the merger. And I was the only executive in my segment that was identified as someone who needed to stay. So they put together what's called an executive retention bonus. So they came to me and said, "This Ollie, if you stay here for a year after this merger, we will give you $25,000." That was the deal. And I said, "Yeah, okay, cool. I'll plan on staying." So I stayed there and I continued to stay. So I did not know that I had diplomatic immunity at the time, but that was the reason why I was not fired on the spot. So then you had the scandal in 2002, and Bernie Ebbers, Scott Sullivan cooking the books. And so that led to the closing of my business unit here in Atlanta. They offered me a business unit in Dallas. I said, no, I'm done with you guys. I'll just take my severance and walk. So I walked from a multi-six-figure income and lost $1.3 million in retirement because of the stock scandal. And I said, I'm just going to step out in faith and do music. I need a logo for my company. I reached out to a friend of mine and says, hey, listen, um, when I play, people say I create the perfect atmosphere. Create a logo for me with me playing and creating atmosphere. So my friend created this logo. This is me playing and creating atmosphere. So that was my logo. So by 2009, I was broke, completely broke. Utilities and stuff was being cut off all the time. If anything could be cut off, it was cut off. And so our house was up for foreclosure. In fact, we went through 7 foreclosure proceedings. And this little guy right here, Nathan, he's about 14, 15 years old. And here he is playing the saxophone, upstaging me and my band. I'm here on guitar. And so one day Nathan says, while we're homeschooling, he said, hey, Dad, didn't you own MCI stock? I said, yes. He said, didn't you own a lot of stock? Yeah. Well, how many shares did you have? I said, well, I had about 33,000 shares. And he said, boy, I bet that was a lot of money. And I said, well, yeah, it was a lot of money, but I never calculated really what that was. So when he asked me that, I said, wait a minute. Okay, so the stock on the high was somewhere around $90. My strike price on that stock was about $58. So the net that really belongs to me was about $32 per share. So I took $32 per share, multiplied it times 33,000. So I owned $1.1 million in MCI stock. My 401k was about $425,000. So I had about $1.5 million kind of set aside. And so I had $1.5 million. After the scandal, I was left with $256,000. So I lost 83% of my retirement portfolio. And so needless to say, I was not very happy about that at all. Now, the way that went down is the players involved, the telecom analysts from Merrill Lynch, Solomon Smith Barney, Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter, all of the analysts, here's what they said. When the stock, it peaked at about maybe 85, 88 or so. But when it dropped to 80, it's no big deal. You know, there's stocks fluctuate all the time. When it dropped to 60, all of the analysts said, hold, don't worry about it. We just hold, it's going to come back. When it went down to 40, a couple of the analysts said, guys, this looks like a great opportunity to buy because the stock is going to come back. And you can see right here, it kind of dipped here and people started buying and it kind of forced the stock up just a little bit. When it got down to 20, there was silence. No one said anything. And then of course, it ultimately dropped down to about 8 cents per share, which is totally worthless. There was not one analyst said sell. None of them said that. They all said hold, 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 and it just went down to the ground. So that's why so many people were kind of they just lost a lot of money. So we're back at 2009, and I just prayed. I said, Lord, please show me how to do music. I do not want to go back to corporate. If there's any way possible, I don't have to go back to corporate. Please make a way. So, and he did. He began to show me instantly after that prayer what I needed to do. The referrals started to turn around in 2009. I met Victoria. Victoria was contacted and to do worship at this church, and she called me. I was in between churches, and she said, "Hey, OP, I'm doing worship at this new church that's starting up. You know, why don't you join me on sax?" And I said, "Okay." And so the new church starting up was Mission for Life with senior pastor Kim Moore. And so, and then later on, I met executive pastor Dave Nichols, and that came a little bit later. And then also what came later was Gene Owens, who's director of worship for Mission for Life. And so Gene was just an amazing uh, keyboard player, and he would just burn up these keys. And then I found out later on that when he said, "Well, my main instrument is guitar," and I was just completely floored by that. But anyway, the connection between myself and Gene was just like Jake from back in El Paso, where there's just a synergy that happens whenever we play together. So it was just a real strategic blessing meeting him. So the turnaround continued in 2009. Two songs that I wrote became top 10 on the radio, Hallelujah 97.5 in Memphis. 2010, I was named as one of 5 men of distinction for the city of Atlanta by the Atlanta Tribune magazine, the top uh, uh, magazine, African-American owned magazine. The mayor was Mayor Kasim Reed was named Man of the Year that year. By 2011, the referrals continued to increase. And 2011, met Rick Sanford, guitarist extraordinaire and a band leader for the Blast Band. So he retained me to handle his horn section. We do events all over the Southeast. 2012, I was the top woodwind instructor for Ken Stanton Music. But by 2013, I had to resign that because the referrals and the gigs began to increase so much. In terms of media platforms, I used none of them. Did not use Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, nothing whatsoever. No flyers, no brochures. It was all word of mouth. And what would happen here is the Lord showed me how to connect with people. I would do an event for this guy, and this person would be at that event, and this person would say, "Hey, I need someone to do music," and this person would say, "Well, hey, you need to contact this Ollie Patterson guy." This person would contact me, and I would have no clue who they were, how they even heard of me. But that's how referrals begin to come in from all over the place. So the referral snowball began to increase, and that ended up in band connections. Here's the 40th anniversary with KBA. Here's Gene over here on guitar. This is the event for the city of Kennesaw. Again, we got Gene over here, and we have Alan Cook on keys. This guy, the bass player, is Kenneth Bentley. He's a 2-time Grammy Award winner. This is a band event for Beaver Toyota grand opening. Once again, we have the amazing Alan Cook on keys. This is Black Wall Street. We got Gene over here. We got Alan over here. Then there were children connections. So just connecting with children and doing events. And it's all children, they like music. There were political connections. This is Congressman Barry Loudermilk, a good friend of mine. Former Congressman John Lewis, Kennesaw Mayor Derek Easterling, Ambassador Andrew Young. I've been at several of his events. Ackworth Mayor Tommy Oligood, Herman Cain came to town. And then there's fun connections, just having fun, just making people love music. soothing connections. People say, gosh, your music is just so calming. It's just so, I just love your music. I just love your music. And so, and then there's also business associations, Marietta Business Association president, president of the Ackworth Business Association, the East Cobb Business Association. This guy was president of the West Cobb Business Association, and he's also one of the top real estate brokers in Cobb County. This is Bill Borden. And then again, West Cobb. So it was just connections through music. People began to talk and all that stuff. And so, so getting back with Alan Cook, Alan told me at one point that he was a photographer, that he is a photographer. So I hired Alan to photograph my events, and Alan was very good. So after about 4 or 5 events, Alan said, he said, I'm glad you like my photography work, but if you really want a really good photographer, you need to talk to my wife, Naja. So when he said that, I dropped Alan immediately. And so when I say immediately, it was probably sooner than that, but I dropped Alan immediately, and I contacted Naja as a photographer. And so her first event with me was at the Emmys red carpet in 2017. That was her first event. And then after I did that event for the second year, the Emmys contacted the coordinators, and they said, be sure to bring that sax player back again next year. So they contacted me for the next year, and I said, yes. I said, I'll do it, but let's just take it up a notch. And I'll bring in my guitar player, and we'll just make this thing really classy and special. So I brought in Gene Owens for 2018, and it was just an amazing time. 2019, I was president of the KBA, but also in 2019, Naja introduces me to this man, Bishop Clarence Harris. And I look back now and I can see how all of these different events, there was all so strategic in getting to know Bishop. So Bishop shows us the CPO, and we're going through the CPO. And one of the things he says is, he says there's going to be a silver quickening, and silver is going to go to about $1,000 per ounce. And when he said that, I said, Lord, are you giving me a second chance? I mean, it was profound. I said, are you giving me a second chance? And the reason I say that is back in 1984, Anna and I were in a MLM business. And with this MLM company, the only product that they had was a 1 ounce gold coin. And back in 1984, that gold coin was around $350 an ounce. Now, today gold is pretty close to $1,900 per ounce. And so I missed out on that opportunity. And so what that looks like is this. Since 1984 to the present, the dollar has devaluated about 57%. And so that's a lost opportunity of 1,162%, or about 11.6 fold loss in buying power. And so I didn't want to experience that again. And so the second thing that really struck me in Bishop's presentation was he showed this slide, and this is a slide where an orange real estate was going to depreciate over time, down 60%, and during that same time, the same amount of silver was going to appreciate to about $2 million. And I looked at this slide, and because I have an analytical mind, analytics started firing all over the place. And I looked at this and said, my goodness, from here, you can acquire a lot of real estate down here, because of the gap in buying power. And then as I saw the CPO a couple more times, I realized that this chart was based on silver reaching $100 per ounce, and silver was scheduled to reach $1,000 per ounce. And I thought, my goodness, this is powerful, and I don't want to miss this the second time. The other thing that Bishop mentioned is he mentioned a word that was called tax accepted. I did not know what that meant, but in the context of how he was using that word, I knew that tax accepted was better than tax exempt. And what that did is that I understood that all of the transactions that we do is accepted from taxation, but it also brought me back to 1998. And in 1998, I paid $117,000 in payroll taxes, in taxes, income taxes, well, payroll deduction taxes in 1998. And so, and by June of 1999, I received a letter from the IRS. And the letter stated, um, "Dear taxpayer, you have been classified by the IRS as a highly compensated executive. Our records show that you have not um, submitted your taxes for 1998. Therefore, we have um, completed your taxes for you, and we estimate that you owe the additional taxes shown below. Please submit your additional taxes using the attached form." And so that's what the letter was. And so what the letter stated was that I owed an additional $108,000. And so that would have been a total of $225,000 in income taxes. And I'll just tell you guys straight, when I got that letter, I said to myself, I am not paying you people another $108,000. You can send me to San Quentin, you can send me to Sing Sing, Leavenworth, Alcatraz, you can send me to all four places, but I am not paying you people $108,000. And so I took my stuff to my accountant. We got it down to $3,000. But I thought about all that because everything that happens under our jurisdiction is tax accepted. And I understood the power of that firsthand. The other thing that Bishop mentioned was recruit. And so when he mentioned recruit, that gave me flashbacks to MLM. And I said, oh man, this is an MLM. It's like, man, I just, Anna and I, we've been in about 10 or 12 MLMs, and we're just MLM'd out. We're just allergic to MLMs. So I just really was struggling with that. But then, of course, later on, I began to understand that this is not MLM at all. And so once I began to understand that, it's like, okay, this is cool all the way around on so many fronts. And then the other thing that Bishop mentioned is that we are creating a financial arc that will sustain people for what is coming, for times that what is coming. And that resonated with me very deeply. I mean, I understand what's going to go down. As in Revelation, there will be a one world government. There will be a one world. There will be one financial system upon which to operate in that system, a person will have to deny their faith and take the mark. And so this was an alternative to provide for anyone who was willing to not have to go through that. And I thought, man, that was very, very powerful. So what I began to do is I began to do my own research. I began to do some research about what was going on, studying what was happening, doing some research in the academy. And so I researched this for about 3 or 4 months. And after about 3 or 4 months or so, then I went back to Pastor Kim and Pastor Dave. I said, guys, listen, I've been looking at something, and I've been evaluating and examining, researching this for about 3 or 4 months now. And as I said, so I think this is something that you guys need to take a look at, and you need to consider. We need to consider this. And I said, because what this is going to do is this is going to allow us to put on our oxygen masks so that we, as our individual households, are going to be financially strong. And I said, the second thing it's going to allow us to do is it is going to allow us to build a grain house. So for people in our congregation that are not going to be prepared for one reason or another, you know, as things begin to hit the fan, that we will be able to sustain. We will have the provisions that will sustain our congregation. And I said, and in addition to that, I said, this is so powerful that when things begin to happen, the people who are in the world, people who don't know Christ, um, they're going to turn to the church for help. And this will put us in a position where we can actually be an effective witness to people who don't know Christ, because we will have provisions for that as well. So that was the message that I brought to Kim and Dave. And so they both looked at it, did their due diligence, research, and etc. And we are all on board. I began to learn things like the biggest inhibitor to long-term wealth is the interruption of compound growth. And Albert Einstein says it this way: compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. So I began to learn about compound interest, and so we have just one of our uh, cash flow vehicles is whole life insurance. And within that whole life insurance, there is a average of 6 to 8% um, of return on cash value that is compounded annually. In addition to that, there's 5 additional strategies within whole life that return even much greater than that. So I decided to do some reverse engineering here. So I said, all right, back in 1998, I had $1.5 million. And so if I looked at an 8% return, what would that look like? So doing some reverse engineering, that would result in about $10 million today. And so I look back at that and I got very angry. I mean, really, really angry, for losing all that money because of that scandal. And as I was going through that, I just really felt like the Lord said, don't look back. Do not look back. And then I considered Abraham. And so Abraham, in football terms, it was fourth quarter. He was trailing by 5. It was fourth down and goal with 5 seconds on the clock. That's where he was when Sarah became pregnant with Isaac. I thought about Moses. In baseball terms, Moses was on the bottom of the ninth, 2 outs and 2 strikes when he delivered the Israelites out of Egypt. I thought about Samson. Samson, in health terms, Samson was on his deathbed on ICU with his eyes gouged out, and his last few breaths, he took out more of the enemy in his last few breaths than he did all of his life. And so I just really felt like that the Lord was speaking to me: do not look back. God is able. And so that's where I am. So then there's the academy. I've learned so much through the academy. And one of the things that's real near and dear to my heart is 401ks, IRAs. People who have, they're banking on their retirement, their savings, and they're really trusting in 401ks and IRAs and pension, those sorts of things to cover them through later on down the road. But they do not know, A, how volatile these instruments are. B, they don't know that a lot of them are underfunded. The money is not there. And so they just don't know that. And so one of my passions is to begin to educate people on what's happening to their IRAs, so that they're not subject to the kind of losses that I experienced, because those losses are coming. The other thing I learned, which was probably the most powerful, is the jurisdiction upon which we operate. And that is Title 26 of the IRS Tax Code. We are 508C1A. We're an integrated auxiliary trust. We are mandatorily accepted from taxation by the IRS. And as we mentioned earlier, we operate as an ecclesiastical state. And that is powerful. And then also, what hit me was that we literally have access and incorporate the strategies that the elite use. Um, People in Main Street, just regular everyday people, uh, don't have the remotest access or knowledge to what the elite do to acquire wealth. And even if we did have that knowledge, we don't have the financial means to even be able to participate. Like, for example, to be an accredited investor, you have to demonstrate $250,000 in earnings if you're single, or $350,000 if you're married. Some of the strategies that the elite play in, you've got to come to the table with 1, 10, 5, or $100 million to be able to operate in those realms. But what we actually are able to do because of our syndications is we are actually able to participate in those kinds of strategies, just right where we are. And so I found that to be just incredibly powerful, and just simply amazing. And then there's the iCovest market, because there are many people in Main Street, many entrepreneurs, people who have small businesses, that they can actually place their products and services on in the iCovest market, and transact in that environment on a completely tax accepted basis. In fact, I just wanted to say that before the end of this year, my book will be on the iCovest market. Too many referrals, too much business. And it just talks about the concepts that the Lord has shown me, to where that has generated more business than I can handle. I'll look back at COVID, when most musicians were shut down 100%. And it was during COVID, it was during that famine period, where I actually had an abundance, and I was able to give gigs out to other musicians, even throughout a pandemic. And so just to summarize, I just want to say this. Back in 2018, the owners of Active Financial Group, they were part of the KBA. In fact, Sue was on my board when I was KBA president. And so they're located right next to Mission for Life. We're in the same complex. She came to me and says, Ollie, she said, we are moving our office. And we just felt like, I was praying, and I just really felt like, God was saying that Mission for Life should take over this office. And I said, well, Sue, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll get with Pastor Kim, I'll get with Pastor Dave, and we will pray about it, and we'll just kind of see what the Lord says. And she says, okay, great. So to make a long story short, we prayed about it, and we felt like the Lord said, yes, take over the space. And so we did that back in 2018. And so fast forward to today, we are going to use that space for the Ministry of Finance for Mission for Life. And so that is going to become an iCovest office. We are in the process of getting it ready right now. As you walk in, this is the foyer area right here. And to the right is a medium-sized conference room. This is the view from the conference room, looking outwards. So we're going to transition this space for iCovest, and we are very, very excited about making that move. So so that concludes my testimony, guys. I just wanted to say, and the last thing I want to say is Philippians 3:13, which is this, and I've had to refer back to the scripture many times. But one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind and reaching forward to what lies ahead, I press on toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. So I will leave you with that scripture. So thank you for the opportunity to share.